All right. So for everybody's information, I am recording this and I will be sending out a PDF of my slide deck and I will send a link to the video, the recording. So if anybody wants to share it or um, I have a lot of people that read it and sometimes people can't make it for one reason or another. So I will share the video link after we're done. Okay, so welcome to this webinar on high return on investment certification training. So anybody that wasn't sure what ROI stood for, it's return on investment. Okay. So this is about learning skills that will help you to rapidly reduce stress and that wasted time, energy, and talent that you have. And it's also going to help you to accelerate the achievement of your goals and objectives for what your role is now in your organization, but as well as your career goals. So I'm Michael Asbury. I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, and I've got over 20 years of experience in this industry. And in the last 6 years, I've trained over 2,000 people. About 1,000 of them have gotten certified in Lean Six Sigma. And at one point in my career, I was responsible for quality and continuous improvement for over 20 facilities around the country. So I didn't just learn this stuff in a book and just regurgitate it. I got to live it and breathe it and Um, I got to feel the experience of the blood, sweat, and tears to implement this stuff and actually make things better at these facilities around the country. So, what you're going to learn today is the benefits of being able to identify and remove waste in processes and some of the skills that you would learn in order to set up the processes to work for you rather than against you, and you'll see what the effects are on the organization and how the organization will be able to accomplish much more with the same time and resources that it already has. And this body of knowledge is very valuable for your organization, but it can also lead to a very satisfying and rewarding career because you learn how to set up processes and people for success, and they can accomplish a lot more with existing resources. Okay, everybody with me so far? Not lost anyone on slide one, have I? All right, so our whole philosophy is less stress and better results. So the key takeaways for today are you're going to learn how to eliminate the daily frustrations that drain your energy. And you're not going to learn all those skills today, but you're going to learn about what they are and what you could do to learn them, and practical skills that can make you indispensable to your organization, and some of the ways to reduce stress by streamlining your processes and taking the chaos out of your processes. And essentially, you're going to learn how to make work easier, not just for you, but also for your entire team and the other departments that you interact with. And you're going to, at the end, we'll cover which certification path actually fits your goals and your schedule. All right. So why are we calling this high return on investment certification? First of all, ROI stands for return on investment. That in um, suggests we're going to be investing time, money, and effort into getting training. So where does that return come from? Well, we're investing a small chunk of time to save a substantial amount of time that's going to keep paying dividends for as long as the improvements that you've made are in place. So oftentimes people make improvements that save 4 or 8 or 10 or 20 hours per week. Okay. And it might cost you some time to learn these skills and then some time to actually implement these things, but they just keep giving back to you. Okay. So you save time for yourself and your teams and your processes, and it makes a huge financial impact for the company and yourself. So you might be spending this much money on the training and having this much money per year impact on the organization. And if you're paying for this training out of pocket, maybe you're spending a few $100s or a few $1,000s, but you come away with a 15 or 20% raise and twice as big of a bonus per year. And this part that you've invested becomes this much every year. And it puts your career on a growth curve that you wouldn't be on had you not pursued these skills. So one of the other pluses is you learn how to reduce the daily stress and frustration, not only for yourself, but also for your colleagues and teammates. And you also decrease the amount of effort you've got to put into your work to accomplish what you're trying to do. In other words, you learn how to set up your processes to work for you rather than against you. Okay, so everybody with me so far? Am I preaching to the choir? All right. So a lot of people can relate to working in an environment like this where each person in every department might be trying to maximize their KPIs, hit their OKRs so that they can get their bonuses and the raises and get a good performance review, right? However, sometimes these things are not aligned. We've got a lot of friction and conflict between people and teams. And what we're not doing is rowing the boat in the same direction and building a lot of momentum to get where we want to go. All right? Make sense? So when we operate like this on the left, we're wasting tons of time, energy, and talent. And guess what? Typically, there's high turnover. All right? Who wants to come to work and waste their time, energy, and talent every day? Like, yeah, great. 5 years and I'm still in the same situation I was 5 years ago. Right? Anybody ever feel like that? You don't have to. You can learn this stuff and reduce the chaos and accelerate your career. You don't have to be stuck in one spot. This is a free country. You can learn skills that make things better. All right. You don't have to just sit around and complain and expect the squeaky wheel to get the grease because that's not how it works. All right. It's who do you know and how much do they like you? Okay. They like you a lot if you're getting them results and making them look good. Okay. So, how do we do it? How do we reduce the chaos and build momentum? Well, we do it systematically. We remove the obstacles that waste your time, energy, and talent and stress you out. And while we do that, that gives you more time, energy, and talent to accomplish the things that move us in the right direction. That gives us better results. So this is happening simultaneously, right? So with this training, you're going to learn how to identify bottlenecks and how to distinguish which parts of your process or which parts of your organization you should focus on first, second, and third to have the biggest impact. And you'll learn skills like prioritization with Pareto charts, prioritizing by urgency versus importance. And then you're going to learn basic problem solving skills and the steps to successfully get from like, oh no, we've got all these problems to like, okay, that's the one we're going to knock out first. We're going to figure out why it's happening, what's causing that, what to do about it, execute it, test it, make sure it works, and then make that the new way we do things and train everybody so it stays and it doesn't go backwards in 2 weeks or 2 months. All right. So you'll learn fundamental problem solving tools. You'll learn about defect maps. Even as a yellow belt, you'll learn about defect maps. We're in problem solving or data driven continuous improvement class. This tool right here can help you solve problems that have been around for 30 years. This particular one was that exact case. They're like, oh man, we've got too much of this. Well, let's count it. How many of it happens per day and per week, and where is it happening? Likewise, this is another one. We had another issue. We used this defect map to solve another nasty problem. And you're going to learn about how to use spaghetti maps to see how much running around you do to get what you need to do your job. I call that the scavenger hunt. Okay. How many people feel like you operate like a caveman sometimes, hunting and gathering what you need for a substantial part of your week, just so you have what you need to do what you need to do, right? So spaghetti maps are a cool tool for that. You'll learn about. You're going to learn about root cause analysis and overview of some of the tools to help you to figure out what is that first domino that falls over and causes this nasty chain reaction, putting us into chaos. So you'll learn some root cause analysis tools, why, 5 whys. and three-legged 5 whys and some other tools, cause and effect diagrams, and so on. And you're going to learn how to drive continuous improvement. Maybe you don't have influence or authority over your entire organization at this point as you're, down here in your career path, but, maybe someday. In the meantime, you can drive continuous improvement in your own process by learning these 4 blockers, which you learn in several of the different classes that we teach. You're also going to learn how to analyze your time and how much of your time is leading towards your goal versus time you spend getting in position to do things that lead towards your goal. And this other chunk of time, which is in the red, which just wastes your time, energy, and talent without strategically position you so that you can score. Okay. And you'll also be able to track the impact that you have. Like, what was it before we made our improvements versus after? Like, this is how much time it used to take us at each of these stations to get our daily output. This is how much time it took afterwards. You reduce the variation and you move the average higher or lower, depending on which is better. Okay. By learning these skills, you can help your organization get a lot more accomplished with the resources that you've already got while reducing the costs and expenses and making your organization much more profitable. Okay. A lot of people are just like, hey, I've been here a long time. I should be getting raises and promotions. The best way to get raises and promotions is to perform highly and do things that make things better for everybody around you. Okay. Not just show up and go through the motions and, wish that you got your promotion. All right. Get results, make things better for everyone around you, including yourself. Okay. And they will come. All right. So one of the first exercises that we have people do in our training is analyze what is going on with your time. Okay. So we start with imagine what your week was like last week. You know what I hear most people say? Busy, 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 busy. Like it's a badge of honor, right? How busy were you? Oh, so busy. I was the most busy I've ever been in my whole life, right? Just like the week before, right? But how much of your goal did you actually achieve? So we can break this down into how much time were we driving towards our goal, doing the strategic things that allow us to drive towards our goal, and just doing all these things that don't do either of the other 2 categories. Now, if we know these 2, it doesn't help us much. It just tells us like only this amount of your time was effective. The rest gone, right? Nothing to show for it. But if you track it and you know what the details are in these chunks, now you've got something that you can target and do something about. Okay. So instead of being reacting and just complaining, guess what? You can have some agency in your own life and your own career and figure out, okay, well, if that's what's in this bucket, how do I eliminate some of that stuff? What would be quick and easy for me to eliminate, like starting next week? Okay, boom, 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 boom. All of these things, relatively easy, but I was just running so fast trying to keep up with the treadmill and trying not to fall off the back. I couldn't slow down long enough to see what were these things that I could eliminate, right? So we take those actions first and eliminate some of this. And then what's left, we figure out how can we reduce some of this stuff. And we end up getting to something like this, where you're getting the same amount of work done in much less time. So one of the first times that we started doing this exercise in my yellow belt class, a guy that was the department manager for the bottleneck of the whole organization, he did this and shared the results with his team, and they collaborated, and he knocked out 15 hours of time per week that he was spending on stuff that was just eating up his time, energy, and talent without allowing him to drive on his goals and his role. Okay. So if you do this, you can get twice as much done with less stress and with less frustration. Okay. Without adding staff and adding robots and applying AI to everything. This is just applying common sense. AI in terms of actual integrity, actual intelligence. Okay. Makes sense? So everybody with me so far? All right. So now let's talk about the training. So I give you kind of the gist of what you can do once you learn this stuff. But what do we got? Well, this is all about Lean Six Sigma training. Okay. So for yellow belt training, you're going to learn the core concepts of Lean Six Sigma, the principles, the tools, and you're going to learn a systematic data-driven process for process improvement and problem solving that's going to allow you to get high impact and low impact quick hits in your process, where you can just collaborate with your team and make stuff happen without having to get tons of approvals because it's already within your span of control to do these things. They just expect you to make these decisions day in and day out. Okay, so you're going to learn how to prioritize and execute improvements that are going to reduce your stress and your teams and drive results. You're going to learn the phases of DMAIC, which is the Six Sigma systematic problem solving and process improvement methodology. You're going to learn how to develop project charters for your projects. You're going to learn about all the wastes that happen in process and about 20 lean core tools that are going to give you quick wins and drive improvement rapidly. You're also going to have a better understanding of formulating the customer needs and requirements so that you know what good looks like. So if I'm making a change or an improvement, does it check all the boxes for the positives that they want and avoid all the negatives that they don't want? Okay. And you're going to learn how to do process mapping, data collection, and you're going to learn about basic quality improvement terminology and tools. And you're going to get pretty heavy into root cause analysis and into time value analysis. So you can study a process and say like, okay, boss, this percent of the time we're scoring touchdowns. This percent of the time we got fumbles, right? This percent of the time Murphy is intercepting it and running it back for a touchdown for the enemy. Okay. Does everybody know what Murphy is? I'm talking about Murphy's Law. All right. So if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So you start identifying and quantifying that, you can prioritize what to improve to make your job easier and more effective. Okay. And you're going to learn how to use a data-driven process improvement and engage and empower your teams with 4 blockers and following plan, do, check, act to get quick improvements. And I'll touch on this 4 blocker thing here next. Okay. So I call this a 4 blocker. Back in the day, like about 20 years ago, one of the organizations that I worked for, our biggest customer wasn't exactly thrilled with our level of quality and on-time delivery. So their supplier, I can't remember if it was their supplier quality engineer, if their purchasing agent said, hey, check this out, guys. I want you to track the orders that we have with you using this, and we're going to track your performance versus a goal and track what goes wrong day in and day out. Okay, so this is your performance trend. And over here, we're going to have a breakdown of these problems that you're tracking. And then down here, you're going to bring this to a meeting. And each week, you're going to talk about like, okay, these are the things that went wrong. So what are we going to do about it? Right? If we could snap our fingers and knock 5 of them out, which ones would you do to make the most impact? All right. So the team talks about it. We say this, and this, right? And then we go through and work backwards from the symptoms to the causes and what we think those root causes are and why. And then we come up with what are we going to do about it? Who are the right people to do it and help us make it happen? And what's a realistic target date considering everything else we got going on that we're juggling? All right. So this is a very powerful tool. Okay. They're relatively simple graphs, but they're relatively easy to grasp. Okay. Everybody with me so far? All right. So once we get to this point, we decide what we're going to do. We follow plan, do, check, act. We say like, okay, this is our plan to execute. We do it. We check it to see if it works or not. If it does, update the SOPs and work instructions, and that's the new way we do it. If it didn't quite work, we go back to plan and we tweak it, and we keep going through the cycle until we've tweaked it enough that it does work and we have knocked out the root cause. Okay, makes sense? So this type of thing, typically as a yellow belt, you can be knocking out problems within a few days or a couple weeks by following this pattern. And you can quickly see these bars shrink, 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 and go to the right as the other ones kind of move over. They're still short. And within a short amount of time, you have very few problems in your process. Your stress level's down, your frustration's down, and your performance is beyond this performance target. Okay. So this is one of the key tools to drive continuous improvement into your culture. All right. So what about the certification training? Well, who is it for? It would be great for team leads because they're leading a team. They can say like, hey guys, this is how we're doing. This is what's holding us back. What do you guys want to do about it? Right. It's also good for supervisors and managers and your executive leadership team, your strategic improvement steering committee team members. Okay. So whoever's in charge of that site and figuring out like what projects we should do, it'd be good if they could get to yellow belt so that they've got problem solving skills as well, and they can track performance and they can prioritize what to work on. Right. And they know about project charters because that group is looking at 100 different projects and deciding which ones to do and which ones should get a budget for the upcoming year. Okay. And if they don't have this type of training, you know what happens? They sit around, have a meeting, do a bunch of brainstorming, start throwing stuff against the wall. And then they're like, well, why didn't this work? Right? Not using critical thinking, not using root cause analysis. Okay. So this is a pretty simple class to take to help upgrade the entire company. Okay. By hitting these 4 levels. All right. Plus, anybody that's going to go on to green belt or black belt, this is a good starting point. Okay. So, any questions so far? And I will open it up for questions here at the end in about 10 minutes. Okay. All right. So, what about green belt? Green belt's the next step up from yellow belt. Okay. So, with the green belt, helps you understand how to lead improvement projects and teams to overcome obstacles and get results that are a little bit more challenging than yellow belt. They drive improvements in their own departments typically, and they work on process improvement about 20 to 25% of their time. They'll get some type of a project that's pretty good challenge in their department, and they'll typically do 1 or 2 of those per year, but they can have a big impact. Okay, so what do they know that the yellow belts don't? They know how to lead these teams on larger and tougher problems. And they've got additional tools for facilitating teams. I call it herding the cats. Okay. Anybody ever heard of that analogy? You ever see cats running around at your neighbor cat lady's house? Okay. Imagine you got to gather them all together and like lead them from the start to the finish of a race. Okay. That's what you're doing in an organization because although people are not necessarily like cats, they're getting pulled in all kinds of different directions at work. Okay. So it's a little bit of a challenge to keep them on track. Okay. I know you guys can all relate to that. So you're also going to get deeper data analysis and measurement tools. You're going to learn some probability and statistics. And for a lot of people, it'll be a review. And it doesn't get like into real difficult probability and statistics. Okay. If you want to go all the way to master black belt, you can do that. Okay. You're going to learn about design of experiments. So you can identify which variables are the most important for your process, and you can kind of play around with different combinations of those to optimize your process, take it to a whole new level. You're going to learn about implementing statistical process control. In yellow belt, you learn how to follow statistic process control, but as a green belt, you learn how to set it up and implement it from scratch. Okay. And you're going to learn how to lead tougher projects from start to finish. Okay. So everybody with me? So the people that should take green belt, managers, analysts, process engineers, manufacturing engineers, industrial engineers, and techs. It's a good stepping stone for them. Those people are working on projects constantly. Okay, so this should be in their blood and in their DNA. And with their schooling, a lot of them already have a lot of the the skills and the abilities, but maybe not the full toolbox and maybe not in an integrated way. Okay. So this takes them up a notch. So the quality of what they do is better and faster and they deliver impact. But also anybody in the quality or process improvement roles or continuous improvement roles, they should be eating, living, and breathing this stuff day in and day out to make things better, not just track what's going wrong. Okay. You feeling me? All right. And then anybody else that's going to go on to black belt and basically be like a ninja that you throw them in there against all odds and they can come away with the victory. All right. And we'll get on to that next. Okay. So with the black belt, they're going to be a process improvement expert and they're going to be a true business professional. They're going to be able to speak the language of finance and, this is costing us in this, and this dimension. And if we knock out the root causes, it's going to have this, and this impact. Okay. Too many people in upper management, they get one-dimensionally focused and they miss out on a lot of the other aspects of the problems as well as the impacts of solutions. Okay. So the black belt helps upper management make better decisions and helps get them better results. So they lead projects with Lean Six Sigma expertise, and they're even able to train other belts like yellow belts and green belts. Okay. Mentor them so that if you've got a company that's got suddenly 20 yellow belts and like 10 green belts, who's showing those guys what good looks like? Your black belt expert. All right. That just multiplied the impact of all of those people by being able to demonstrate what good looks like and coach them through when they run into obstacles and issues when they're trying to do their improvements. Okay. So they're going to have additional more advanced improvement project leadership so that they can overcome obstacles to get results. So they're going to learn more about organizational roadblocks and obstacles too. And they're going to drive 4 to 6 larger projects per year. And they should be able to go anywhere in the organization to work on it, not just their department. Okay. Because the skill set applies to any processes in any industry, not just like, hey, I grew up in this department, so that's the only thing I know. It doesn't matter because you can apply these skills to figure out whatever the case may be. Okay. So they're going to be working on improvement projects about 75 to 100% of their time, depending on their role. And in order to become certified, all 3 of these belts have to pass a certification exam. But a black belt has to complete a real world project that's worth at least $200,000. Okay. So that's another aspect of where this has a big ROI. You spend a few $1,000s to get somebody trained. Boom. In order to get their certification, they had to at least come in with a $200,000 impact to the company. Okay. So they're going to have advanced project and team leadership skills. They're going to have intermediate to advanced statistics. They're going to be able to implement lean, total quality management, and design or redesign processes. So you might max out, eliminating a bunch of the obstacles and interferences of a process. And a black belt can come in there and understand how it works and help you redesign it to innovate and take it to the next level. Maybe you get 20 or 50% or double without having to spend $1 million on robots. Okay. So they're going to be able to do more advanced process mapping. They're going to be able to use software for analysis like Excel and Minitab. And they're going to learn an advanced strategy that combines theory of constraints and Lean Six Sigma. So with our training, you get the Lean Six Sigma body of knowledge from ASQ, plus you learn about theory of constraints and some other key things that are going to help you to be more successful as a yellow, green, or black belt, especially the black belt. Technically, if you take the black belt through Elevate, you're going to be an advanced black belt. Okay. And they're going to drive high impact results. Typically, they're going to have at least $500,000 per year impact for each year that they're at the company, minimum. Okay. Oftentimes, they're doing somewhere between 3 to 6 projects, and most of those projects might be worth that much. Okay. So they're going to be a game changer for their organization. So who should get a black belt? This is for high aptitude people. Okay. It can be managers that have growth potential, um, and that want to drive significant impacts in their areas of the organization. Analysts that are like analyzing all the stuff that's going on with the organization and trying to help the leadership make better decisions that have higher impact. And this would be a great career path for anybody that's in process engineering, manufacturing engineering, industrial engineering. Because, like I said before, these guys eat, sleep, and breathe projects, right? Likewise with your quality and process improvement staff. They should be aspiring to get to the point where they want to be a ninja that goes in, oh, you got a 30-year problem? Bring it on, right? 3 to 6 months, it'll be ancient history. We'll be better than anybody else in the industry that's still dealing with it. Okay. Make sense? Because everything happens for a reason. Once you understand how things work and why, you can knock it out and make it better. So, and then other people that will continue to drive impactful results throughout their careers. Okay. All right. So the options for getting certified. So the normal, most common way that people get certified is they start with yellow belt. They take 20 hours of training. This can either be 100% self-study, or it can be, which would be like all e-learning, or it can be hybrid, where a portion of it's live with some live sessions, and then the rest is e-learning. So we found that this maximizes the flexibility for those key players that are fighting the good fight at work and trying to keep the boat afloat and the wheels on the bus going round and round. Okay. Back in the day, you just pulled people from their job for X amount of time and they'd focused on the class and nothing else until knock it out, right? Some companies still do that, but a lot of companies don't have a backup for someone. So if they're out, nobody does their job, right? So this flexible these flexible training options help with that. So green belt, typically people get the yellow belt and then they do the green belt upgrade, which is an additional 40 hours. They take another certification exam, and in this case, they do a simulated project, and then they upgrade their green belt to a black belt, which is another 120 hours. Okay. And in this case, they do their certification exam plus they've got to do a real world project worth $200,000 for the company. Okay. So some other paths, um, maybe you feel like you kind of grasp lean, you've got a background that's technical, you want to skip yellow belt, you could take the green belt without the yellow belt prerequisite, but you still have 60 hours of training because yellow belt is 1/3 of what's on the green belt certification exam in that body of knowledge. But because you've decided to do all 60 with committing to both or all of it, there is a price break. Okay. Likewise, if you got a yellow belt and you're ready to sit, you're like, man, I love this stuff. I'm ready to rock. Let's go to black belt. You can do the black belt, yellow belt upgrade, which is 160 hours. And once again, there's a price break because you're committing to knock out the green belt plus black belt body of knowledge. You're going for it. Okay. Then there's the black belt accelerator. So let's say you get the idea and you're ready to go for it. I'm ready to upgrade my career. I'm committing all the way to go from 0 to black belt. So the accelerator gives you the full body of knowledge, once again, with a price break. Okay. So if this is jiving with you and it's aligned with your DNA and how you're wired, you can follow this link, learn a little bit more about our certifications, or follow this QR code, and then it will show you some paths to get certified. Okay. I can actually show you what that looks like on my website. I'll circle back and do that here. Okay. I'll show you a couple more slides and then show you what that looks like. Okay. So our next cohorts of yellow belt. Now keep in mind, if you decide to go with an e-learning option where you do it completely self-study, you can start anytime you want. You could start today. Okay. If you want to have some live sessions, you can start in November for yellow belt or green belt or black belt. But that's a week from today for yellow belt and green belt, and it's a week from tomorrow for black belt. So if you're trying to decide whether to make a move or not, you want to get it going. The only time better than now would be like a year ago or 2 years ago, and you'd already have it under your belt, and you'd already be advancing your career, knocking things out that you've got to deal with today that might already be eliminated. Okay, sound good? So I've also have a bunch of continuous improvement courses where you dig in deeper on specific skill sets. All right. I call these attainable superpowers. So for level one, it's a 5-course package. You got intro to lean, intro to critical thinking, data-driven continuous improvement, fundamentals of problem solving, and basics of project management. This is very powerful. And each of these is a relatively short course, like 5 to 9 hours. Okay. Then there's level two, implementing 5S, mistake proofing, setup time reduction, effective corrective actions, and basics of standard work. And then level three, you've got continuous improvement leadership fundamentals, which is basically a chunk of information you wouldn't get until Master Black Belt. Okay. Likewise, with Lean Six Sigma Leadership Bootcamp, there's a lot of stuff in there you wouldn't get until Master Black Belt. However, the top part of the organization should know this stuff if they want to effectively run an organization. And then you get basics of change management, value stream mapping, and Kaizen events, which are all tied together for how do we strategically rapidly improve our organization. Okay. So if any of you are interested in any of this, or maybe some of your team members might be, we got these starting up next week. Also, core CI skills level 1 starts November 4th, level 2 a week later, level 3 also a week later on November 11th. Okay. So does anybody have any questions on any of this? I've done a lot of talking. I probably threw a lot of information at you. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you. So if you want to say anything, just unmute yourself and feel free to jump in. All right. Well, so let's say, some of you are probably interested in training for yourself, but what if you've got a team, or maybe you're the plant manager? Okay. I put together a strategy for basically developing a customized training program for your whole organization where, imagine you've got your org chart here and you're thinking about like, well, let's say our performance isn't exactly where we want, our culture's not exactly what we want. I'm kind of in charge, so people are looking to me to like figure out how to get it to look how we want it to, right? To get from here to here. If I bought a company, this is what I do. All right. Top level leadership, they're the tip of the spear, right? They need to show what good looks like. There's certain things I would start with the top person and their direct reports first, then the people that report to them. So you've got succession planning built in. Then there's certain training I would give to mid-management, and then special training that I would give to people that like this is their niche. They do improvements all the time. They should be either green belts or black belts. Okay, at least some of them. Not everybody, but you need a handful, right? And it all depends on the size of your organization. And then there's certain training that's like oxygen and food that would be good for every level of the organization. So then your top level becomes the Strategic Improvement Project Steering Committee. They're overseeing the Strategic Improvement Project portfolio. These are all the things we could do. Which ones will we do? Which ones are we going to do first? Right? And by doing this, you take your organization up through the levels of competency and core skills that they need to be an effective organization and work together to get the bus where it needs to go. Right? They're going to learn people skills and process skills. And you're going to go from managing chaos and day-to-day shenanigans to something that's aligned and gaining momentum. And the different parts of the organization are these different parts of the arrow here. Okay. And then you can come up with like, okay, who should get what training when, and you develop a timeline to roll it out. Okay. And as this timeline's rolling out, you're seeing your stress is going down and your performance is steadily going up. It might even be on a exponential curve. Most likely it will be, because 20% better and 20% better than that, 20% better than that. It's a curve. Okay. So anyways, this is what you would want to do as you go up through the ranks in your company, and you want to bring people with you, and you want to be all aligned and having improvements happening simultaneously throughout different parts of your organization. Okay, so practice what I preach. So this is all about professional development. So over the course of my career, I've had a bunch of different roles, and in order to get from one role to the next, sometimes you got to invest in yourself. If you don't like, you're hitting the ceiling, you're not going anywhere. Sometimes you've got to invest in yourself. Maybe your boss says like, no, we're not going to reimburse you, right? No, I'm not going to send you to training. Guess what? They can tell you no, but they can't stop you. Okay. But it's great if they do say yes, and here's the money. Okay. And here's time to do it. But that's not always the case. So it depends on how bad you want it. And it depends on what your current level of dissatisfaction is and your hunger to get to the next level. And if you really want to be a change agent, or you just want to be another squeaky wheel. All right. So, does anybody have any questions? All right. Well, I noticed that one of my graduates from black belt training is in here. Boyd, hate to put you on the spot here like this, but I know that you've got a PMP, you've got an MBA, and you've got a black belt, right?
Yes,
So
I do.
so for some of the people that decided to invest their time into like looking into this, they're probably thinking about like, well, I'm thinking about doing something to accelerate my career. Would you mind just kind of giving us your take on the differences between you did all three options, so you know them well. Which ones have which advantages, which ones take longer to get, and which are more expensive? And just what are your thoughts?
So, I look at it, it's all about developing your tool set. So having the right set of tools that you're trying to get. So kind of like you did, you had a different path and the different steps in your career. Same thing for me. I kind of went through, the company would offer me opportunities to take the PMP, to take my MBA, and now the black belt. So I've been very fortunate companies pay for it. So the biggest thing is just what I've seen is the ability to structure a challenge and be able to, again, I keep saying applying the tools, but that's basically what it is. The PMP, that really taught me how to organize and manage the projects effectively, and how to manage a team, how to keep them motivated, and again, give them structure. Whereas the black belt, that gave me the higher level tools to actually improve the process itself. So, and that is using data, it's root cause analysis, continuous improvement. And the biggest thing I think of it is like the PMP gave me the frame, and the black belt filled it with the precision instruments to solve complex problems. So as for difficulty of getting them all, I think that the black belt was probably the hardest because I had to brush off some of my statistics skills, which it's really not that difficult as you look into it. I think it's more of a mental thing, thinking that it's going to be hard, but it's really not. I mean, it's just applying the steps. So that was very educational and enjoyable to get that knocked out. And then the PMP was fun. Again, it just gives you the structure. So in combination, everything is making me so I'm successful now. So it kind of gives me less stress that we talked about earlier, that I know I have the tools and I know I can go into any situation and I can look at my toolbox and I can solve a problem. strategically step through it and figure things out. So it's very reassuring for me. And just as I go along, I get more complex problems, and I'm really proving myself with just pure dollars being saved. So I appreciate your training. The black belt training was very educational for me, and it's going to help me on to my next steps in my career, whichever ones that may be. But I'm ready if I need to be.
Excellent. So, I know since you've taken all three of these, when you're sharing the success of your projects, you know, that with stuff that you've learned as an MBA, stuff that you've learned as a PMP versus stuff that you've learned as a black belt, which of those like really gets you the most ROI for the organization in terms of like how much you spend on a project versus the financial impact to the organization?
Well, I would base it down with the DMAIC tools, you know, define, measure, just the basic blocking and tackling. So it would be the structure of that to actually get in and see how things are flowing. And the biggest value for me that I've seen is actually going in and identifying your current state, knowing where you're currently at. So when you do make the improvements, you have those financial improvements that you can show. You say, hey, we were here, now we're here, which in past, in my earlier training before black belt, I would more focus on, hey, what's the solution? I got to solve this quick instead of, okay, there's a whole process here. I want to be able to show what I've really improved. And that's really helping me as I go along in my career now that I'm seeing.
Right. So you can basically say like, here's where we were, we spent this much money, and now we're here, right?
Yeah. And that's where you're gonna get your return on things, and that's where they're gonna give you the next project because you're showing them the finances, and that's what it all comes down to. They're all trying to make the money. So
Yeah, you're not asking for a big chunk of their budget, but you're giving them a big impact, right? So, do you mind sharing like how much your first year impact for your project was?
sure, just high level with my project, we call it the metal bay, and that's where all of our sheet steel came in for our facility. We make steel cabinets, just different kind of steel furniture, call it. And it was chaos. We didn't have any control of the area. There was no management. There was no perpetual inventory. Inventory fluctuated monthly. We had high dollar swings because inventory was wrong, and all of a sudden we'd have to write a bunch of things off. So with that, we just went in and identified some of the root cause challenges and went in and we implemented systems, some of which is we created bin systems. So we knew exactly what product was going where. We created barcode things on all the labels. And then we implemented tracking tools to make sure we could see inventory movement. And then finally, we just went ahead and implemented the resources in place to manage it correctly. And within a year, or about half a year, we were able to have about $1 million in savings by reducing the steel inventory by 55%. And ultimately achieving zero production downtime, whereas before we constantly had downtime because they would run out of material. So now we eliminated all that. So it's been a very productive and financially good project for the company.
So how much did it cost you guys to do that?
It was minimal. So it was a couple $1,000, you know, just some labels and PDCA boards and a little bit of training here and there. So it was very minimum. We implemented a lot of 5S. So a lot of the basic blocking and tackling. It was
So by the time this has been implemented for a full year, what do you think it's going to hit? And like
well,
impact.
I see it was saving almost $1 million a month. So now that's actually not dollars that they had, but they were holding that $1 million in inventory. Now I took that down, I cut that in half. So you could take that $1 million and invest it somewhere else at 6%. So I mean, you could do the math on that. So it's a very good chunk of money. So they're ready
Excellent.
for me to move on to the next project and make some
Awesome.
improvements.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Um, so, Boyd knows this stuff works, and it really does. So does anybody have any questions? I, anyone else? Okay, so before I jump off of here, if you followed the link that I'm going to send you, I'm going to send you those a PDF of those handouts. If you follow the link, you will be able to see, it'll take you to my website. Okay, can everybody see my screen now? Okay, and so this just, if you're interested in signing up for training or learning about more of the classes, you can go to certification train, get certified, and that gives you all your different options for yellow belt, or if you're upgrading from yellow to green or whatever, you can click learn more, and then you can see some of more of the details about what's in the actual class. And if you think like, okay, I'm ready to pull the trigger, then you can click enroll now. Okay. And if you were interested in any of those continuous improvement training packages, you can check out this other tab where it says CI training. You can look at those packages, which give you a discount, or you can take individual classes at a smaller amount and a less commitment, like 5 hours. 5 hours of training isn't a lot. Most people spend more time than that on their phone or TV, maybe even in a day. Okay. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate it. This is a pretty good turnout, and look forward to checking your email. I'm going to send you a link to this recording. I'm going to send you a PDF of the presentation, and feel free to share it with anybody if you think it might be useful to help them with their career, or a colleague like, oh man, this department, whew, if they learned this, it would be fantastic. All right. Okay. But really, it is the gift that keeps on giving, because once you learn how to do this, you can figure out, if you're not satisfied with something, you figure out how it works and why, and figure out what to do about it. Don't just sit there and whine about it. Okay? Sound good? All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording in case any of you guys are just a little too shy to ask questions with recording on.